By the end of 1980, Space Invaders was getting blasted out of first place by asteroids. In this game, your ship must destroy floating rocks and shooting spaceships before they destroy you.
Oh, there was one video game that my nephew had that was pretty good. You were like, I don't know the name of it, you were in a spaceship, a little flying saucer, and you had to fly around and avoid asteroids and shoot them.
Was it called Asteroids?
It could have been, you know, I don't know.
I freaking love Asteroids.
Whenever growing up in the arcades, I used to always play Asteroids a lot. I love the vector style graphics. I love the fact that you shoot one large asteroid, they split up into smaller asteroids, those split up into even smaller asteroids, and you get the random flying saucers that shoot at you too. So there's a lot going on in Asteroids.
They're everywhere. There's asteroids everywhere. What should I do? Shoot them! I'll shoot them! Pew pew pew! Pew 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 pew!
And then they go, pew, little ones, and they're going faster, and you're like, ah, my God.
How fun is that?
Not very. I actually don't like asteroids very much at all.
I don't like you.
Don't like the button setup.
The 5-button setup was ingenious.
I don't like the thrusting.
You had thrust, you had left, you had right, you had fire, and you had hyperspace, which was a giant crapshoot because you didn't know where in the hell were you gonna go.
Hyperspace would randomly send you to another part of the screen. However, if you use it too much, you'd end up blowing yourself up because you'd hyperspace into an asteroid. So no one really used that as far as I know, because like again, you had the little finger set up with the, then you had that, you know, metacarpal thing going on trying to get to that hyperspace button. So I never really used it.
They're discouraging you from using it.
Yeah, you only hit it with your elbow while you're playing. That's how it was. I'm doing the asteroid dance right now.
Hyperspace was a good way to get out of a jam, but if you used it too much, it could become deadly. We're talking warp 9 dangerous here. She can't take much more of this, Captain. I have no idea what I'm doing here.
I guess it technically had like a physics thing going on because it was all based on momentum.
Yeah.
But my problem was I'd just tap on the thruster and I'd go shooting off and smack into a freaking asteroid.
It doesn't just stop on a dime. If you stop hitting the thrust button, you keep going. I mean, okay, the physics is kind of weird because you go from one end of the screen and you come out on the other, so that's like cartoon physics, but...
Well, the funny thing about, well, not funny thing, but the thing is with Asteroids is for some reason it was Atari's best-selling game.
True. They were even like swapped out some lunar lander cabinets for it, right?
In fact, they had to stop production of the Lunar Lander, another vector graphics game. They had to stop the production of those cabinets to use them for the Asteroids cabinets, and it did pretty well for itself. The VCS port, Atari VCS port of Asteroids in 1980 was a huge seller for the system. It was one of those turning point moments for the VCS when they got Asteroids on there.
And there was a good example we mentioned before how you could only do vector graphics in the arcade because the VCS version of Asteroids was, you know, big colored blobs, and you know, it didn't quite look as good as the arcade version. Though I do remember the arcade version of Asteroids, I believe, also had to use an overlay for color as well. Yep.
The Asteroid soundtrack is just like Space Invaders. It's that heartbeat rhythm that just gets faster and faster as the game progresses. I remember when I was a kid, there was a cocktail version of Asteroids at a children's hospital I had to go to, and of course I was nervous about my procedure, so to take my mind off it, my parents said, hey, why don't you go play Asteroids? Somehow it didn't set my mind at ease.
Insert coin. Intellivision. Intelligent television by Mattel. More sophisticated than any video game that has come before. Providing hours of entertainment for the entire family. Intellivision, with one of the clearest game displays available today.
All right, 1979. In this year, Mattel was the largest toy company. Actually, today, they're still the largest toy company out there. But in 1979, action figures and Hot Wheels and Barbies, well, that wasn't enough for Mattel, no.
The handheld game market was not enough. They wanted to make a console. They test marketed the Intellivision.
That's an Intellivision too.
Close enough.
Which is short for Intelligent Television. They test marketed it in Central California through Gottschalk's department stores. I forget how many Gottschalks there were in the Central Valley, but probably like 6 of them.
We got better graphics, we got better sound, we got better games.
They were more expensive. I mean, it was $300 for an Intellivision compared to $150 for an Atari 2600. And it went on the shelves with just 6 games.
It is easily my favorite looking video game system of all time. I mean, it's gold and brown and wood. It literally looks like the dashboard off a 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme.
The Intellivision had a lot going for it, and there were a lot of things that actually made it a little more superior than the Atari VCS. The graphics were a little bit better, the colors that were used were better, the sound was better.
The Intellivision was technically the first 16-bit console, but the Super Nintendo it was not. Obviously.
You know, Atari came out first, great company. I mean, they were the ones who really kind of revolutionized the stuff.
Everybody owned an Atari, all the major games were coming out on Atari, and basically what happened with the Atari 2600 is it was just easier to program games that were faster, more responsive, felt more arcadey. But you could not deny that the Intellivision, with a couple of years of extra development time on the 2600, had much better graphics.
And they also had the license of most sports outlets like Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA, NFL.
Somebody in the marketing department had this brilliant idea of, well, we don't have the arcade machines and we don't have the budget to go after some of those.
Atari focused their efforts on trying to get licenses from the arcade. Intellivision went for the sports titles.
At the time, we had the exclusive, so only we had NFL football and only we had Major League Baseball.
The Intellivision as a system actually did a lot of things first. This might seem small, but it was the first system to have a full font embedded within the system. Uppercase and lowercase letters, which is really important for readability in any sort of game that's going to have text on the screen.
And when you add the keyboard component available this summer, Intellivision can change your family's life. It simplifies financial planning, even custom designs a Jack LaLanne exercise program for you.
Play dryer.
You had the IntelliVoice. I even had the keyboard. They had the keyboard for the Intellivision.
One of the things I really like about the Intellivision are the controllers. You have the 16-way directional disc here. You could also put a joystick on there as well and use it that way.
The Intellivision controller, I still think is genius. I mean, people think I'm nuts, but I mean, you had all the numbers with the overlays, but the side buttons in the disc, I mean, this was unbelievable.
I think it was like 12 buttons, 12 plus 4 buttons on the side, I think. So it's like 16 buttons on the freaking thing.
Kept that golden brown feel. It had the phone number pad.
Looked like a freaking telephone. What am I gonna call my grandmother? Or am I gonna play video games here, right?
And one of the other things that Intellivision did differently is they had these controls that utilized these little overlays. Basically, they were overlays just like this. Small little pieces of plastic that you just put on top of your controller that had different functions or showed you different keypad motions for the video game that you're playing.
Back in the day, if you lost those overlays, you couldn't play the game unless you remembered what all the buttons did. Nowadays, you can obviously go on the internet and look them up. But back then, you lost them. What were you gonna do? Buy the game again and ask a friend?
If you actually open up an Intellivision controller to try to service it, as I had to do recently, this is what your Intellivision controller is printed on. There's no circuit board. This is barely stronger than snack cake packaging, and they just put the circuits directly on it. Not only that, but certain parts, like sensitive areas, like where the control disc goes, there is no buffer between the disc, so it actually grinds rings into the circuit itself.
I personally hate this controller. Luckily, you can, well, not luckily about anything, you have to use this controller.
The Intellivision had a huge library of games. I mean, the system spanned almost 10 years. Of course it had a huge library of games.
The Intellivision came with Las Vegas Poker and Blackjack as a pack-in game. Sure, it was no Super Mario Brothers, but it was a game.
The Tron games that they did, Deadly Discs was just one of them, but this wasn't on any other system at the time, and it was unique. The movie was popular, and it's considered to be a decent game. Games like Burger Time had their only sequel in Diner, like a true sequel, and it was only on Intellivision, and that's pretty cool.
Kind of a hard game to come by, but it's a really fun port, and it's very unique. So if you like Burger Time, check out Diner for the Intellivision.
Me and my friends love Night Stalker, but the bats are so scary.
Well, your friends aren't going to have this newest one. It's Frog Bog.
Oh man, they're not going to believe this.
Oh man, Microsurgeon. Really the first health medical video game. And you go inside someone's body, try to figure out what's wrong.
You gonna open that?
No, it's sealed. Ruin the value.
One of my favorite games for the Intellivision is He-Man, The Power of He-Man. And this is a really fun port. There's several different stages. You got this hovercraft stage. You also have the stage where Skeletor's shooting fireballs at He-Man and he's trying to avoid them. I love the sound effects, the sound of the swords hitting each other, with the music from the actual cartoon. It's a really great port.
And then we have, like, these games everyone knows about, the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons games. This one is the Tarman one, which is kind of cool because it's one of the first-person dungeon crawls that you see, and certainly the first one that was ever done on a home console. So it's kind of the start of RPGs taking off.
Star Strike was an amazing kind of a Star Wars ripoff. You had to actually fly into the trench, but it was green, and dropped a little torpedo into the target.
But one cool thing to note is that the Atari actually ported some of their games over to the Intellivision, their competitor. And Mattel actually did the exact same thing to the Atari, porting some of their games over under what they called the M network.
They said, and we're going to do games for Atari too, and for the Intellivision.
Much like Atari, Mattel actually licensed the Intellivision out to third-party companies. For example, you had Radio Shack, the Tandyvision, which was Radio Shack's version of the Intellivision. You also had the Super Video Arcade, which was available at Sears, which is also another version of the Intellivision.
I have like about 5 or 6 different Intellivision machines.
Before Intellivision was there, the dads were, and the moms and dads were, saying, should we get our kid a video game system? Should we get him And after Intellivision came out, the question became, which one should we get?
2 million units sold in 1979. That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty dang good.
Coming up next on the Video Game Years.